Hey guys, good to see you, Randy and Andrew. Yeah, say hi to everybody. So welcome everybody. This is Thursday, August 11th. Last I looked on the calendar. And yeah, here comes one of our TXRX cats into the picture maybe. And welcome for folks in the room and folks that are online. So it's really exciting tonight. We'll start off with the folks from Grid Alternatives talking about all the things that they do. And then we've got some stories from Jim Thomson, and then also hardware to see from John Atwood. So that's real good. So we'll do our best with the camera and the microphone. I'll try to run around with the microphone when there's questions and things like that. So it's always good to be interactive, get people to ask questions so that we know what's on everybody's mind here. So we did an audio check with Adam and his PowerPoint, which includes some video. So I'd like to now introduce Carina Flores and Adam Badwound, if I pronounce that right, both from Grid Alternatives. And they've got a lot of good things going on around the country. And so just one of which involves EVs, but they'll tell us about all the good things that they do. So without further delay, which one of you would like to start off?
I can start off. So hello, everyone. Okay. Thank you so much for having us tonight or this evening. My name is Carina Flores. I'm the Member and Donor Partnerships Senior Coordinator at Grid Alternatives. And this is my colleague, Adam Badwound, Chief Development Officer for Grid Alternatives. And sorry, it's us sharing the presentation because I know that it was sent to you. I'm not sure if you guys wanted.
Since I have a video, maybe I'll present it, Carina, and then when we get to my slides, I'll do. Is that cool if I do the slides and then you can tell me when to advance? So I'll just pull those up now. Okay, and now we'll go into the slideshow mode. Are we full screen with the presentation?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes, we are.
So again, we're just giving you an introduction to our organization, a nonprofit organization, Grid Alternatives. So the problem that we are solving with our organization is the access to clean energy. Low-income communities and communities of color are disproportionately impacted by climate change and pollution. Low-income families spend 4 times more of their income on their energy costs, and low-income families are being underserved by the growing solar industry. So our organization is working to address these issues. At Grid, we believe that a successful transition to clean energy must include everyone, all communities, all backgrounds, all inclusive. Clean energy access addresses climate change and the economic inequality at the same time by reducing energy burden on families and affordable housing owners, creating opportunities for employment, accelerating clean energy transition, and addressing critical environmental justice issues. So these are the solutions that we're bringing to these problems. So Grid's mission is to build community-powered solutions to advance economic and environmental justice through renewable energy. And our model is to address the triple bottom line, engage in community engagement, volunteerism, and partnership. And I'm sure you guys already know what triple bottom line is: people, planet, and employment for us. People includes the people who are saving costs with our solar installations and EV clean mobility programs. Planet, doing the transition from a dirtier economy to a clean energy economy. And then employment, we work with workforce development to actually get people to receive training that will allow them to work in the solar industry. So again, our work are these programs, these major programs: clean mobility, solar installations, workforce development, policy leadership, and program administration. And we'll get into each of these different programs.
All right, so I think I'll take it from here. Thank you, Carina. I should have also maybe mentioned that Carina and I are not the program or the project specialists on clean mobility. We come from the finance and fundraising part of our operations and our organization. So we'll do our best to speak to the clean mobility work. So as you can tell, we frame this as clean mobility. Of course, electric vehicles is part of that infrastructure and transportation and the work we do there. So we'll do our best to answer questions, but we might be a little bit limited. But appreciate the invitation today. To kind of kick off the clean mobility and electric vehicle piece of what we do, I thought it might be helpful for us to share a video. It's only a few minutes long, so it won't put you to sleep. That can just bring a little bit of life to the work. We are the nation's leading renewable energy nonprofit organization. We have 8 offices across the country, unfortunately none in Texas yet, but we are working nationally to advance renewable energy, which we see as a combination of a variety of different technologies, including solar, including battery storage, and other technologies like clean mobility infrastructure and electric vehicles. We'll get into some of that here. But as I mentioned to begin with, why don't I'm going to play us a video to just kind of give our work a little bit more life. So let me, oh, sorry, pull up the video here. Okay. So this is from Access Clean California, one of our partnership programs. I should also maybe frame this by saying that most of the work in electric vehicles and our work as a charitable nonprofit has taken place in the state of California, which has resourced these programs. So our work will probably center a bit over there, but I'll go ahead and share this now. Can you see my screen, Carina? Can you see the screen? All right. And if you can't hear the audio, would you please quickly let me know, because I'm pressing play. Great.
Sure will.
I don't spend any money on gas. I have not been to a gas station since I bought my car a year ago. Hallelujah. I cannot tell you how freeing that is. My name is Erica Williams and I live in Pomona, California. I commute to LA every day. I've probably spent anywhere from $250 to $300 a month on gas, and that's no longer an expense I have. I pull into my driveway and I plug my car in. How easy is that? Once I drove my first EV, there was no looking back. I never thought about a gas-powered car again. I just felt kind of free, like I was flying or something. Actually, I was not going to look at them. They weren't affordable in my head. Once I started educating myself, I started finding out about all the incentives that are out there. Then I started saying, maybe I can do this, you know? So it was all about the incentives. Yes, it is possible right now for you to get into an electric vehicle. I bought my car in September of last year, and by December, I had solar panels installed. So I now have solar on my roof, charging system. I have my electric vehicle. I just checked my electric bill. Even with the super dry summer that we had, I had a credit in those months, and I'm charging my car. So it makes sense. If you're in the market for a car, you need to look at electric vehicles. You just can't afford not to at this point.
That video is fantastic. Thank you.
I hope that brings a little bit of life to some of the work we do. And I'll get into this presentation here, a bit of some of the challenges we face in this work and kind of why we exist in that space. But yeah, I'm glad we could share that. I'll go back to the presentation now and share that again. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. Here we go, back on this one. Okay, So clean mobility, electric vehicles, what does this mean for good alternatives? So we saw this video. We can share the presentation with the link here, so you can share that far and wide, because I know that you're all very inspired. But put some slides in here together. And this, I realize I'm probably kind of preaching to a choir, so to speak, with the audience that we're talking about here. So you probably all have a lot greater expertise about this market and really know how to teach us about what we should be doing. But just wanted to kind of throw up, of course, some context for us to understand what trends we're seeing within the technology and the markets in which clean mobility and electric vehicle transportation infrastructure is becoming electric. And so here we see on the left a Business Insider graphic recently that kind of basically what I like about this graphic is on the left, you can see here that according to McKinsey Research and Bloomberg New Energy Finance, the top three commonly most cited barriers to purchase an electric vehicle come down to the purchase price, that being the biggest one, driving range, which is a technical a consideration that's very important, but also charging capability. And so while we're not a car company or in the space of developing the driving range of vehicles, we can try and do things to help with the purchase price and the charging compatibility pieces when it comes to serving low-income communities who are often left out of this market because of cost prohibitive and other reasons. So we know that there's a lot of opportunity to help on the cost front and the charging front. And what we see is as well is lowering of the price for the energy production of these batteries. So the average battery pack is becoming more efficient in its energy storage, but it's also becoming cheaper for the consumer market. And so when you see these compounding or kind of conflated factors, what we see is that there's real opportunity for low-income communities and families to participate in a market that has otherwise been precluding them. And then this graph on the right I share because, as we know, that these technologies often start as they're very expensive, and then over time they become cheaper. And so when we began as a nonprofit organization in 2001, as you can imagine, it was very expensive to do solar in general, and it was certainly something that low-income communities were not really able to do without significant investment from rebate and incentive programs that come from states and other places that are looking to promote the adoption of solar renewables and clean mobility and electric vehicles and whatnot. So what we've seen over the course of time is that both the market is changing and also the market is allowing us to now serve new communities and people and families because the costs are coming down. So in the last decade of the 20 teens, we saw just such a significant and increased dramatic lowering of the price for solar modules, for example. And so for us as a charitable partner, a nonprofit organization, when these costs come down, it really means that we're able to serve new markets and new places that otherwise we'd be priced out of. So our hope as an organization in following the markets and the policy trends and the climate change situation around us is that we do hope and work towards seeing the price of electric vehicles and clean mobility technologies also over time becoming cheaper and more accessible to new communities as the markets and technologies evolve. So we're hoping to see that in the future, and that's where we're really well positioned as a nonprofit organization, is to help with this access. Now, this is another thing that this group probably knows very well, but this work is not only good for the planet, it's also good for people's bottom lines. And so this is a graphic that I found from this New York Times article from last year, which is kind of probably, again, something you're all familiar with, which is to say that electric cars are both lower in cost and lower in emissions. And so they're budget-friendly climate solutions for transportation. So this slide kind of just basically depicts a little bit of the growth of this work for our organization. As I mentioned, we're a charity, and so our work has really kind of scaled and grown as the technology and opportunity has grown as well. So this work began for us back in 2017. Initially, we called this EVs as EV as in everyone was sort of like the little tagline that we had there. Grid's impact and our strategy was being developed. We actually made some hires around our chief strategy officer in developing a clean mobility staffed team. The work began with some major funding wins that we found in California. So this began with the Bay Area Clean Cars for All program. The California Air Resources Board trusted us to implement their one-stop shop program to help provide clean mobility and electric vehicle charging and car purchasing solutions that were administered by the California Air Resources Board. We also worked with a private nonprofit, actually, but it's a beneficial state bank, which is a credit union and a banking and lending institution to help administer the electric vehicle charging contracts that were being deployed from CARB. And we also built our own staff hires and teams as an organization to help implement these programs. They quickly grew, and in 2019, our initial programming and staff then grew up to a team of 10 people at our headquarters office and our Bay Area teams. Much of this work was sort of incubated as we were testing out models and testing out programs. We've been basically learning a lot about how to get and deploy solar in the decades we've been doing solar work. And so what we wanted to do was try and understand what opportunities we might have for electric vehicles and charging that sort of could follow some of the trends we saw in serving low-income communities in the solar space. So we kind of see ourselves as an innovation and incubator for some of these strategies. This really launched in earnest in 2020. So not that long ago, with initial programming that we received, despite the pandemic, we received some of this money from California, which really gave us about $4 million a year to deploy really basically thousands of clients across the state of California with incentive and rebate programs that really promoted their charging and other public subsidies through things like affordable housing and multifamily housing buildings. Let's see, and we also administered a clean mobility options program and a technical assistance program for housing developers so they could understand how to integrate the technology as they developed affordable housing. So really our work has come down to increasing accessibility to clean mobility and clean transportation infrastructure. So for us, this work really does mean the front lines of community outreach and education. So while these programs exist, they're often unknown and underutilized for communities that either are distrusting of the information or aren't aware of it. So one of the challenges that we have as a charity is that often when we go to communities and say there's programs out there that will help lower the cost, or there's programs out there that can help you get solar for free, very often we're met with skepticism that it's too good to be true. That makes sense considering how much predatory solar is out there and how many solar companies are knocking on doors saying, we'll save you all this money and we'll make it easy for you. And the communities say, we don't believe you. So we fight in that same marketplace for those reasons as well. That's one of the reasons why partnerships, especially with state level vehicle incentive programs, has been one of the ways that we've been able to find success in our work. So today our clean mobility programs is, again, we're a charitable organization, but we kind of work in 4 core key areas. So first is equitable access to electric vehicles. So we're doing outreach to income qualified consumers across the state for electric vehicle equity incentives, both directly and in partnership with community-based organizations, labor unions, tribal governments, and other partners across California. Our second main strategy is to expand equitable access to EV charging. So there's the cars and then there's the chargers. And so while we're installing no-cost home for level 2 chargers for low-income families as part of some of the work we do for our solar projects, we're also looking to provide subsidies and access to public charging for renters who can't charge at home. So this is, again, where multifamily building and other infrastructure can help the renter or tenant community, where single-family homeowners might also have their own charger to themselves. The third area that we kind of strategize around our work is for government and utility program administration. So this means that as a nonprofit, we work with these state agencies, the California Air Resources Board, the California Energy Commission, and others to implement electric vehicle equity programs for a variety of different markets that we serve, particularly as they overlay with different utilities within the state. So that's PG&E, Xcel Energy, and other regulatory agencies on the regional level, like the Bay Area Air Quality Management District and more. It's kind of an alphabet soup of acronyms, but we work a lot with those programs that are government-based and utility-based. And then finally, and I'm not sure how much this might be of interest to all of you, because it seems like vehicles could mean a lot of things, but we're interested also in electric bikes, and other options around shared mobility. So for us, that now we're actually launching an e-bike program within the Bay Area, which is very exciting for low-income communities in particular, in partnership with the City of Oakland, the City of San Francisco, and the California Air Resources Board to develop statewide strategies around electric bikes, and particularly how to center equity for communities that would benefit from having access to these shared mobility solutions. In addition, another exciting area of innovation that we're piloting in California is what you might call an EBT card, or like kind of a subsidy program for the fuel or the electricity. So here we're meeting sort of the cost of the electric vehicle on the related incentives there. We're talking about trying to promote programs that bring infrastructure around charging. And then we're also trying to provide help with the fuel for the low-income communities to be able to charge their cars. So kind of like an EBT card or a food stamp card, we're piloting a program where income qualified consumers can access subsidized charging through existing retail channels. So these are infrastructure that's out there on the retail market for anyone to charge their car, and we can help them afford to pay when they do so. So to recap what Carina shared about our triple bottom line is that when we apply this to the clean mobility space, what we see is that on the people front, helping people, that gasoline is much more expensive than utility power. So gas is more expensive than charging. And unlike home electricity, there are no programs like the low-income housing affordable access program or CARE to help low-income folks pay for things like gasoline. So LIHEAP is a state weatherization and energy low-income program that doesn't exist in the clean mobility space. On the environmental front, in addition to fighting climate change, electric vehicles also eliminate neighborhood pollution, as I'm sure you all know, in communities that have transportation emissions that have been disproportionately impacted. And then finally, for some of the economic opportunity that we try and uplift through our projects and programs, electric vehicles offer additional job training opportunities for charger installation and electrical work that help all workers access more significant employment opportunities with reliable, affordable personal transportation. So the programs, some of them I'll highlight that we've been a part of in the state of California was the Access Clean California program, which was the video that I shared with you there. The Clean Cars for All program in the Bay Area, the One Stop Shop, which is sort of meant to be a place for all communities to learn about the variety of programs, incentives, and options in their backyards, and then the Clean Mobility Options Project as well. So by the numbers, since I said we've been doing this work since 2018, it really grew in 2020, but we've, as an organization and a nonprofit, installed 872 charging stations since 2018. We've supplied 363 charge cars for subsidized public charging. We've also installed 110 portable EV chargers, and we've served 1,607 clients with both a charger card and a portable charger. And again, these are all in the state of California. In the near future, we're really starting to jump into the multifamily charging space with work from the California Energy Commission and in partnership with other organizations. So there's a lot of exciting opportunities ahead of us. I know I'm running out of time, but just quickly wanted to touch on what was mentioned earlier, what we're seeing with the Inflation Reduction Act that is currently very exciting for a lot of the interests that we share around renewable energy and clean mobility. So what we are seeing as an organization is an extension of the clean energy tax credits at 30% for 10 years. So this is something we've all been hoping would make it through, given that those tax credits were scheduled to expire. A greenhouse gas reduction fund that includes $7 billion in grants to states, municipalities, tribal governments, and certain eligible nonprofits for distributed solar that benefits low-income and disadvantaged communities. Now, I know that you probably all will be like, oh, solar's nice, but as an organization, we really think that storage and clean mobility is integrated into the projects that we take on for solar. So we're very much interested in what solar does, so we can link onto the other technologies too. As someone mentioned earlier as well, we expect that there will be an electric vehicle tax credit that includes used vehicles. That credit up to $4,000 or a third of the cost of the price. And those are available at the time of purchase to income qualified purchasers. So that's the way that we currently understand the legislation to be written. Overall, $9 billion in consumer home energy rebate programs. So we can see what that has to hold for clean mobility, focused on low-income consumers to electrify home appliances and use for energy efficiency retrofits and other uses. So we'll have to see what comes of that. But I think it could be a very exciting time for us to see what happens, because what I haven't mentioned is, these programs in the state of California either come through regulation or through the state legislature. What we have found is most of the projects and the funding that we have worked and been a part of is really a cap and trade model, where polluters are taxed for their pollution, and then those tax dollars are put into programs that are specifically targeting low-income communities. And so that's very much been the state model that we've been working under in California. Should the federal leadership then say, okay, we have these significant commitments that we've been making and that they've been approved, we will expect to see that both at the federal agencies that receive those programs support, but also at the state level, and how states will take on that and administer that. So what we're hoping is that we really vastly expand our reach outside of California into new states and in new markets based on how this money might be distributed more locally. So we're trying to see what will come from that soon. So that was the end of our clean mobility part of our presentation. Just in the interest of time, I guess I wonder if there's any questions. And I also understand you have the rest of your agenda to get to too. But thank you for the opportunity to share a bit about our work as a charity to help make the benefits of this technology available to those that have traditionally been left out of this transition.
Thank you so much, you two. That's a really information-packed presentation. So a couple of things I'll note, but first I'll let Bill ask his question.
Yes, on the electric, I'm sorry, the rebate for used electric cars, $4,000 or 30%. Can you be more specific as to how you go one path or the other? The other thing is a lot of people have bicycles in their garage with flat tires, I'm sure. And it occurred to me at some point that if there could be a federal tax credit for the purchase of a bicycle or an e-bike, that would immediately see a step change in gasoline consumption, I think. And I just throwing that out there. Thank you.
Well, I guess I can respond on the piece that was about the legislation, and would just go as far as to say that I don't really know what the details are in the bill. When it says credit up to $4,000 or a third of the price, I tend to think that that means that the $4,000 is the limit. And so if the third of the price is going to be higher than that, then you're just going to get a 4K payout for that. So that's the way I would interpret that, but I'm not a policy person. And I do know that this has sort of been shared with us as like, here's what we sense that'll be. So the details might be a little bit different once the legislation sort of details emerge, but that's the way I read that. The second part of your question was, I'm forgetting.
About e-bikes?
E-bikes, yeah, exactly. So the some of the programs that we were working at around e-bikes also include things like electrical scooters. So it's not just bicycles, but other kinds of forms of transportation. And we are really advocating for that, particularly for the shared mobility solutions. So much of the programs that currently exist are you own the car and you own the charger, and that's like the model that they're trying to perpetuate. And what we're trying to advocate for is things like rideshare cars that are electric. So one example of that I'm actually very proud to share is that we found some resources through some private philanthropy and other funding, but we were able to do a tribal electric car share for the HEAA tribe in Southern California. It's a very small tribe, but basically it's kind of like a zip car model for the tribal members to be able to have electric vehicle access that is shared. So what we're trying to say is like, well, the one car, one charger, one family model is out there. We'd like to be a little bit more aggressive in serving renters and serving shared solutions like the, I don't know if they have these in Texas, but they certainly have them here in Denver, the shared electric bikes that are electric scooters, but you don't own that scooter, you just rent it for a moment. And that's sort of the type of innovative models that we're trying to put forth in California that could then be scaled into other markets. But we see it very differently than the one car, one charger, one family model, right?
That's great info. And before we go to Jason, as he has his hand up, just one bit of news that I heard on the electric bikes is that it had been proposed to be in this legislation, but as you know, everything is a compromise. And so the news article I read said that e-bikes were not included in this legislation that's being voted on by the House tomorrow. So people tried, but it just didn't get in there. Okay,
well,
so
it might get in there around the back or something too, because you never know. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Jason.
No, there'll be hopefully more opportunities. Absolutely. And there's one statistic I heard like about a month ago. There are actually 10 times as many e-bikes and two-wheeled e-vehicles than there are electric cars in the world right now.
Well,
I mean, 10 times.
Yes.
Yeah.
The cost calculation for the price of a whole car versus the price of one of these scooters, right? I mean, these mobility solutions just make so much sense. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Jason, you had a question?
Yeah. First off, I think this is super cool, and I love everything you guys are doing. It's awesome. So actually, I had a follow-up question on the e-bike thing. One of the biggest things that keeps me from, say, riding an e-bike to work is it's just not safe to do that. Are you guys working with communities to help improve like bike
Mhm.
infrastructure, allocate lanes so it's safer for people to actually use the e-bikes they're getting?
That is important. Unfortunately, we only really focus on the clean mobility solutions like that. But that level of policy, safety, infrastructure development is certainly something that communities need. Our work doesn't really touch on that as much, though. I don't think it actually does at all. I just to be honest, would say. But you're right. This is sort of like a new transportation paradigm that has a lot of other changes that need to come into, including things like safe biking lanes and opportunities. I live here in Denver and these electric scooters are everywhere. And I look at our sidewalks and I'm just like, that just seems like broken noses and arms all over the place. I don't know how they're actually rolling that stuff out over here, but they are. So there's a lot of catch up I think our communities need to do. I think that's a very insightful point. Yeah.
The other question I had on the e-bikes was there's a lot of really cool like cargo e-bikes and stuff that I've seen in like YouTube videos and stuff. Are you guys working to like help connect people with the people that sell those ones so it can be like a more full car replacement? You can take it to the grocery store or hardware store and load it up with stuff where you wouldn't even necessarily need to go do a car share.
Yeah, so the outreach is a big part of the way that we administer these programs. And so often what that can mean is something along the lines of the rebate and incentive is there at the point of sale. So when they're ready to buy the e-bike, but what they might not know is the e-bike solutions that are out there that could include things like cargo, transporting children, and just other things. You probably all know about some of those things that are out there. And so the outreach piece of that is really trying to make sure that those things are understood. And actually that's partnerships with like the vendors and dealers that are selling these. I mean, obviously they want to do business by getting these incentives out. Another thing I'll say is these incentives are often very oversubscribed and taken very quickly. And so they really have a high demand rate. And so I don't know, to your point though, I think that there's a lot of different types of models that can be applied to this, including some of the cargo and other transportation options you shared. Yeah. But I think that outreach piece is sort of making those known. Yeah.
And so my last question is on, what do you think is the biggest hurdle to uptake? Or I guess if you guys are having, demand or supply problems where you have more people that want your rebates, then, you have maybe uptake isn't necessarily your biggest problem.
Yeah. Well, part of why I think that video is very powerful is sort of this misperception that low-income communities have that this is something I will never afford or will never be accessible to me, despite the many ways that it's beneficial. And so I think a lot of our messaging is really about dispelling the myths about access. And so that's really some of the real hard things that we're trying to hit on, is to really make this seem like a market and an enterprise that can be available to all and really dispel those myths. So that's why videos and storytelling and outreach and like also just demonstration projects and community engagement are really part of our model, because it's kind of the same problem I was speaking to earlier. When you knock on someone's door and you say, we have free solar, they might not know what a nonprofit is. And they might say, you're a swindler and get out of here because your product is too good to be true. And so we have to dispel a lot of those myths. And other contextual piece here too is not all of those programs are low income based. So you can be high income and still and sometimes get a good deal on an electric bike. And so where I see that is like, we're really trying to just scale adoption of this, but low income people should be first in line in my mind, just because they have the highest need and they're often the most polluted communities. But when they are open to all of the above, we often very much see that that's actually sort of a digital divide on information, that they just aren't aware that those programs exist and serve them. So that's part of our job too. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. I really appreciate the answers. The way you put it there reminded me of a quote where it's, we want to include high income people too, because it's something along the lines of a developed country is not one where the poor can afford cars, but where the rich use public transportation. I think that applies to all electrified transportation. If you have rich people riding electric bikes, then everyone's doing great.
Well, and Carina's point when we started with as an organization, when we say everyone, we mean everyone. So it's like we need the rich and the poor to all be a part of this transition in this market. So, well, I want to say thank you to all of you for your time and your questions, and also say, as a nonprofit organization that's really kind of as motivated as all of you, if you have ideas of innovations that we could be doing or things there in Texas we should be monitoring, we're just really trying to position ourselves well to really be responsive to potentially this flood of resources coming from the federal level, but also as our climate changes and this market grows, we see a lot of opportunities. So we just want to say, be in touch with us. Actually, Carina and I had a final slide maybe I'll share here quickly, just to say, please check us out online at www.gridalternatives.org. And feel free to follow us. Let me see if I can pull it up fast enough here. Follow us on our social media channels. Help spread the word about the organization that we're a part of. Feel free to check us out online and yeah, reach out. Again, thank you for just seems like such a special group, electric vehicle enthusiasts in Texas here. And so thanks again for the invitation. Might I ask, just before we sign off, how did you all hear of us? Because that's also something I'm always curious. How do people find out about Grid?
It was actually through our vice president, Robert, and I'll give him the microphone real quick.
Yeah, I told the club about your organization. I think you've given us a talk before, years ago, before COVID, BC, before COVID. And anyways, we're part of EVs. We're also part of alternative energy. We always talk about an EV, electric vehicle powered by a PV, photovoltaics. So it's clean all the way around. No gas, no diesel, no coal, no natural gas, no nukes. So clean all the way around. And I was going to ask one question. Do you know about a group called Native Renewables? I think they're out of Flagstaff, Arizona. They help with the Hopi and Navajo nations, and they do a lot of good work there too.
We are familiar. I'm personally familiar with Suzanne Singer, their executive director, and we fund them. We give them money to help with their projects. So they're a funding partner of ours. We actually support them. Yes, I'm glad you've heard of them too. They're really fantastic there on the Navajo Nation. Yeah, that's great. Well, keep in touch. This is a welcome community for the work we do, and we know we're kind of kindred spirits in this space. So thanks again for your time. Karina and I are going to sign off, but feel free to reach out to us with any questions down the road.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that was great info. Really appreciate it, you guys. So let's see, we will put the chat and so forth back up here again. But all right, so another couple of things that we want to do tonight is hear from Jim Thomson about his experiences with his cars. If you saw my announcement, it was one of the questions was, what 4 things does Grid Alternative have for EV program? And that you saw in the presentation. And as far as Jim's, it was what message came up on his screen while he was driving. And after Jim talks, then we'll have John show us what $2,000 worth of hardware looks like in the box. So if somebody could press the top button again, please. Yeah, that thing keeps going off. Get some light on the subject here. So, all right, Jim, we've got a camera here and a microphone, however you'd like to do things.
All right. I did. I shared a Dropbox with you, but I also have them on a USB.
USB might be quicker. We can stick that
Good.
in there. Tesla cam?
Yeah. That PowerPoint, yeah.
So, and you ask your folks on that.
Hi, folks out there, can you see the PowerPoint? Not in full screen mode, but you should be able to see something. And can you hear me?
I can hear you, can't see.
All right. Can't see, I think I heard. Go left. Yeah.
Now we see.
Thank you. All right, everybody. This is a short mini talk on something I mentioned to Dave once and to Bill Swan. And they said, oh, can you talk about that at a meeting? So this is not a full-blown talk. This is just a couple of highlights of some of my less favorable adventures with the Tesla. Overall, I love the Tesla. It's been great to me. I'm in kind of a low mood now. So can we have the next slide, please? So I want to talk about an experience I had about a week ago. I was August 1st. I have family in New Orleans. Several times a year, I make that drive back and forth. I know where all the superchargers are and some food spots. And I was visiting family in New Orleans and coming back on Monday, August 1st. And I was driving down the highway and I got a very scary message on my screen in flashing red that said, pull over as soon as safely possible. Could we see next, please? So here are examples of messages you never want to see. And these all occurred back to back. First, I got a message that front motor disabled. I said, well, that's not good. Maybe I'll be driving home on just the rear motor, but that's doable. Then the message came up in the middle portion here, vehicle shutting down, pull over safely. Well, that's a real heads up. And then at the bottom, battery charge level too low, charge now, vehicle may not wake up. And that in fact is what happened. My car died on the side of the road on I-10, about 40 miles west of New Orleans on the start of a 360-mile drive. So next, please. So my wife and I was not alone. We were sitting on the side of the road on a shoulder, and the air conditioning was going. It was typical 90 degrees in South Louisiana. We had music, we had communications, we had AC for a while. And then the main battery gave up. There was no power to the displays. The 12-volt battery was still working. Our four-way flashes were working. I could raise and lower the windows, but eventually all that functionality went away. I'm not sure why. So the next slide, please. Next, please. There she goes. So using the app, I applied to Tesla for service, for road service. I also tried calling them, but they don't want to speak to people. You have to do everything through the app. So it took them about an hour to get a local tow operator to come out there. I'm not sure where they were coming from. And they towed the Tesla back to New Orleans, back where we started, to the service center, which is on Chapatoulas Street in, not Midtown, in the Garden District. Next slide. All right, so it's in the shop. I'm not clear when it's coming back. That day, 1st of August, the app was showing that it would be back to me the following day, August 2nd. Okay. I'll just stay one more night at my daughter's home and we'll leave tomorrow with a brand new car or a brand new battery, perhaps. There was also some question of whether the battery failed because the front motor failed or the other way around. Tesla Tech told me it could happen either way. Then a couple of days later, by the way, Tesla did provide us with a rental car. It's a very key thing. So they got us an enterprise car. There were no Teslas available, and they apologized for that. But at Enterprise, I got a decent, unfortunately, gas-burning car and drove home. So a couple of days later, I checked the app, and I see now that the completion date is August 19th. not the second. I was able to call the shop and speak to them a day or two after this. They said, we really don't know. We've not been notified when the battery's coming in. And by the way, we are replacing your main battery. It could be a couple of months. Yeah. So that was on the 8th of August, a couple of days ago. So that's pretty much all I've got to say on this incident. Next slide, please. Part 2 was an earlier incident on an earlier car, also in South Louisiana, also on one of my New Orleans to Houston trips, Houston to New Orleans. Yeah. So we get, this is with a car that only had a 70 kilowatt hour battery. So we had to stop on those trips. We had to stop twice and charge, once in Lake Charles and once in Baton Rouge. So we pull up at our first charging stop in Lake Charles, plug in, and the car just said starting to charge. It never would click. It never would start charging. So as you can read here, I called the Tesla service, who remotely diagnosed that we had a failed DC charging system in the car. The AC charger was still working, but on level 2 charging, it would take us many hours to charge up if we, assuming we could find it. Several hotels in the area. We had 211 miles remaining. This is a car that had 220 or 30 max range. So we would have to charge up again, like we usually do in Baton Rouge or thereabouts, and make the last 80 miles into New Orleans. But it was going to be hours and hours and hours of charging. And then there was the return leg. We'd have to repeat all that. So I've done some business in the Lake Charles area. I've gone to Lake Charles and hopped on a chopper out to the rigs offshore. That was my old life. And I called up the Hertz desk at Lake Charles Airport, and they had a car for us. So it was very good that I had a second driver with me. I was making this trip also with my wife. So we drove down to the airport, picked up the car. The two of us caravanned it back to a hotel near the supercharger, plugged in the Tesla. It was level 2. And drove to NOLA in a rental vehicle from Hertz. And by the way, Tesla told us they would cover the rental expense and also pay us for the gasoline that we wouldn't have had to buy if we still had the Tesla going. I haven't confirmed that for the latest incident, possibly months of gasoline to buy, but we'll see. All right, a couple of days later, we finished a family visit, drove back to Lake Charles, where our car was plugged in at a hotel, destination charger, picked up the Tesla. The two of us drove to the airport, returned the rental, and then drove the Tesla home, because Lake Charles is close enough to make it to, even the old Tesla with the smaller battery was able to make it home from Lake Charles on a charge. And this whole thing would have been pretty difficult if it was just me. We needed 2 drivers to handle the 2 cars. Hertz was not able to deliver a car for us, et cetera. And there's no Tesla service in Lake Charles. So the upshot of that was Tesla replaced back in Houston at a service center. They replaced the DC charger under warranty, and we were up and going again. Next. So it says part 2, but it's actually the first incident. So here are the 2 cars side by side in the garage. I actually had both for a couple of days. On the left is a 2015 Model S 70D for dual drive. It would average about 240 miles per on a full charge. On the right is the much newer and a little bit larger Model X. It's a 2020 that I received late 2019. It has 328 miles range. So much better. Now we can drive to New Orleans, which we do several times a year, on one charge. It was also facilitated by the construction of a new supercharger in Lafayette. So we can drive from Houston to Lafayette, charge up, and then drive to New Orleans pretty easily on that. So one less stop, and that stop. Next slide, please, Dave. Here are some of the situations. Yeah, you can't really see the detail on this map, and I apologize for that. In Lake Charles, the supercharger is on the 210 bypass. So that makes the trip longer. You have to exit 10 and take the bypass south of town, find the charger, plug in, charge up, and then get back on the bypass and reconnect to 10 east of town, east of Lake Charles. And the other 2 circles on there show La Place, which is where the battery died, the car died. and then New Orleans, which is a place we're heading to. So as I say, Laplace, we were there about 30, 40 miles west of where we had just left from. So my daughter came out and picked us up and drove us back to her house. And as you saw, the flatbed came out and picked up the car. And the car remains in the shop. The next day I drove to the service center, picked up a bunch of items that I needed back here in Houston, a handicap card, a garage door opener. Well, not a garage door opener, but because that's built into the Tesla, a few other items that we drove back with here. I think we're about done. One more. Oh yeah, one last issue in the wild West Texas. This happened exactly a year ago in August. We had done a car trip, a road trip to New Mexico. We spent 3 or 4 nights in a VRBO in not Albuquerque, in Santa Fe, and that was gorgeous, great property and great town. Then we drove up to up into the mountains north of Santa Fe into Angel Fire ski area. We stayed there 3 or 4 nights. Oh, overall, very nice trip. But heading back, I had a flat tire at dusk. I pulled over on the shoulder, and I said, I actually had an inflator with me, just purchased for this trip. But I thought, well, this would be great if Tesla could just come here and fix my car. They do a free roadside service. And I connected with them. They said, well, we'll tow the car to the service center in Oklahoma City, 238 miles away. So I said, let me get back to you on that. I contacted AAA, where I also have a membership, and said they would come out, but they were a no-show. So then I used the tire pump I brought with me, inflated the tire, drove to Childress, Texas, where there is a supercharger, and I had 2 more inflation stops because I had a leak. I had a nail. But took care of those, and then checked into a hotel, which we'd called ahead and booked. And at daylight, discovered a hotel was adjacent to a Walmart with an auto service center. So we took it over there at first light, and they patched the tire. And that was the end of that woe. Next, please. We're going to skip this. This is a duplicate. Thanks, Dave. So here is a map from the Tesla online web page. You can see where I broke down just a little east of Amarillo. At the time, Amarillo had 1 supercharger. You can see they now have 2, one on the east side and one on the west side. And second circle is Childress, where with a couple of inflation stops, we drove to and got the tire repaired and went to the supercharger there. If you're not familiar with the Tesla world, those electric bolts in red are superchargers, and the car knows where they are, and the car knows how much range it has, so it makes sure you get to one when needed. And just for scale, over on the right is Oklahoma City, up in Oklahoma. I said it was over 200 miles away from the breakdown. And besides the supercharger icon, there's also a wrench in a red circle, and that's a service center. All right, thanks. That might ended up. This is a guy. He's been referred to as a bit of a nut, but he's super friendly. I rolled down the window and talked to him. He used to visit people in parking lots in parts of town in Houston, in Meyerland, and in Bel Air, and throw this sign up and say, "I love your Tesla," and wave at you. So it's a little weird. Does anybody else have an encounter with this fellow? You should.
Yes.
Super nice guy. I rolled down the window and chatted with him. Some people said I was crazy to do that, but he said, I just love Teslas, and you're doing your part. Thank you. It's an expensive car. Thank you for making the investment to help clean up our air. So that's it. Thank you all for your attention. I'll take any questions.
This guy was at one of our Drive Electric in Bel Air. And I gave him a ride in the Roadster back then. Yeah. So yeah, he's a super fan, I guess.
Yeah. No, he'd love to. So he said. The current resolution is they will replace the battery. They're waiting to get one. They haven't been told by Tesla when it's going to come, with any details on that. Where it's coming from, I don't know if it's coming straight from the Nevada gigafactory or where it's coming from, where it's sourced. So they don't know when it's coming in. As you saw on the one slide there, they said it could be a couple of months. I'm hoping that the replacement battery has at least as much range as my car had when delivered, because it's a brand new battery. And I think the new batteries have even more range. I've lost about 40 miles of range in 2.5 years. So I've dropped from almost 340 to 290 on a full charge. And I would love to get that, bumped back up again. That is strong. They 5% per year, Tesla does. So that's a little over 10%. So it's not that far off. It's in the New Orleans Service Center on Chapatula Street. I guess that's how I'll get the rental car back too. Yes. Just gave me a rental agreement number. It's a Chevy Trans. It's been good to me. It got surprisingly good mileage on it. I mean, fuel up at all. No, I looked into that once when it came out, and it was a lot more expensive than I was carrying at the time for just my Tesla car. It was more expensive than both my cars. I needed to give it another look.
Yeah, the insurance is a whole other category. Of course, they watch people's driving, and some people don't like that. There's the safety score, which is currently operating on my car because I'm waiting to get the newer software. And the way that they are deciding, Tesla is deciding how to give it out, is they give you this score. Currently I have 94. I don't think that's quite high enough. Last I heard it was like 98 or something you did. And it has to do with all my family members who drive the car. And so I've heard that with the insurance, they want to watch how you drive. And if you take too sharp of turns or you follow behind another car too closely, they deduct points and you go down, and that makes your insurance with Tesla go. Well, in my case, I'm seeing it not because I have anything to do with their insurance, but the full self-driving SFD software hasn't been rolled out to all the cars that qualify to get it. They are doing it slowly because they want to look and see how it performs. So they started with 1,000 cars and then up 10,000 cars, and slowly they will get it out to everyone. But the way they decide who to give it to, it's not like whoever was first on the calendar. They want safer drivers to be using it before your average. Right. Well, I mean, you could make that argument. Yeah.
Thanks, Dave. That's an intro to another presentation I'll be making here when my car comes back. I have the full self-driving beta, and it's fascinating what it can do, which is not everything, but it's surprisingly good. Every now and then you have to correct it from driving into a curb. So you have to be really alert. So when the car comes back, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, I'll bring it over here and we can take turns experiencing it. I bought it out at the time. It was about $6,000. I think it's 10 now. Yeah, it was several years ago. It was a car I used in my business. So I packed that charge into that.
I know you mentioned your range went down. My Bolt, B-O-L-T, it's a 2020. It was like around 250 or so when I bought it, and now it was like 200. And then just yesterday they installed the software into the safety margin, so it only charges up to 90% or something. So now my maximum range is 190 or 200-ish. Sometimes it goes to 200, but and I have it. It's almost 2 years. In September it'll be 2 years. So yeah, but they're going to get new batteries for me because it's part of the whole battery replacement stuff. Yeah.
So the Bolt and most other EVs are a little different on that front, just because the gasometer adjusts to your driving, where Tesla's range indication doesn't do that. It's just a standard measure of your range based on your battery capacity.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, interesting. So Bill, you had a.
You can manually put in the tire, and you don't even have to take the tire off if you can find the nail or whatever it is. Yeah. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, that's smart carrying a plug. That's something people don't do anymore, which is.
Oh yeah, for our road trip from here to California and back, we got a tire repair kit that had like a little plunger where you could put a piece of rubber in with glue to repair a nail hole on the road if you needed to.
Yeah. Okay.
The kits that I have for the motorcycle come with CO2 cartridges. And you just screw it on there, pop one of the cartridges on there, and you just keep popping the cartridges on until it's full. So
Better than using arm power to pump up a car tire. Yeah. Okay. Good.
I was just say there's a number of people that have messed around with Tesla batteries. It would be wonderful, Jim, if you could arrange to get the old battery, assuming there's some life in it. I don't know what process Tesla has for recycling, but gosh, I there's one guy over there.
Well, for the most part, I think Tesla keeps the battery. So another battery story about a Tesla. Our 2014 Model S that we bought used, a year and a half old in 2015. We had it for, I don't know, 6 months or something, and it gave some kind of message, and we took it to the service center, and they said, actually, it was not a message related to the battery. We took it to the service center for something totally unrelated. I don't know if it was tires or whatever. And they said, we see something in your battery that we don't like. Come back in a month when we get a loaner battery from Louisiana. We're going to put it in your car for 6 months, and then we're going to ask you to come back again, and you'll get your original battery back that we're going to send to California, and they're going to do some magic to it. So we saw absolutely no signs of any problem with the battery. But when the car was there for other purpose, they were reading all the sensor data that the car, of course, has got tons of sensors. And so they preemptively switched out our battery for a loaner battery. And I'd never heard the term loaner battery before, but yeah, and even specified where it was coming from. And then, so we did exactly that, went back a month later, got the temporary battery, went back again after 6 months. They said it was our battery back again. I mean, not that I could have told, but they're looking at sensor data and such. So yeah.
They put your original battery back in, and did they tell you any inkling of what they looked at or what they maybe changed?
I asked, and the service center here didn't know anything more.
Yeah, we don't know. Here's your battery.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's like, how much could you press them? It's like, really, tell me now. You know, it's like, well, that's yeah. Right. I mean, it's one of those, company proprietary. They don't want everybody in the world to know just which things they've learned from batteries. But, I told you of everything they told me that I could get out of them, everything. So anyways, that's good on that. So John, do you want to be up next? Talking about your.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention our previous discussion, Tesla insurance. Well, I have Tesla insurance. So when I bought my Model 3, about 6 months ago, I got it in December, and I was with Geico, and I was paying like $220 a month for 2 cars with full coverage and 1 car without full coverage. And then I got a quote from Geico for the Model 3, for a 2021 Model 3, and it was going to be, I want to say $400 a month. maybe it was like 350. It was going to be for 6 months. It was dollars or more for a 6-month policy, and just by itself was over $1,000. So me dropping the volt, which I was replacing. So I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do this. So yeah, started their insurance program in Texas. So I was like, okay. So I quoted that, and what I'm paying now, or actually, so they started my safety score when I got the car at 90. So that was the base safety score. And at 90, I think I was paying for the Tesla, and then for full coverage on my wife's car, the CX-9. I was paying $220. Wait, what did I say? Maybe it was $210. I don't know. What I was paying with Geico was originally $220. Then I dropped the car that I was only truck because I took it apart. And then so for the 2 cars with full coverage, it was like $210. And I also raised my minimums a little bit. So it actually, I think it worked out better or slightly the same. And then I'm going to add my truck back when I finally get it working. Oh, and then of course my safety score has gone up, and it's dropped off. It drops off like, I don't know, $5 or so every point that the safety score goes up. So I think the Tesla was like $100 or $105. And the other car was probably the same, $105. And so now the Tesla's like $85. My safety score is like 95. My safety score, the highest I ever got was 98. Yeah, out of 100. And it didn't last long, because I drive in Houston and heavy traffic all the time. So I just can't get it there. Yeah. If you use autopilot, the autopilot will follow closer than I will follow, but autopilot doesn't ding you in any way for your safety score. So I always think that's a little weird, but I want to be able to take corners as hard as I want to. So it definitely doesn't like how fast I take corners in my car, but whatever. I'll just buy a tire when I need to. Yeah, you can. And you trying to keep you from getting in your lane, you can adjust it all the way up. Stay out of my lane. It does okay. But yeah. That leads me into I brought a show and tell, and this is a part for the truck actually. So I am still working on my truck project. I did move. So a personal fact is I no longer live in Missouri City. So I moved to Sugar Land, which is not very far. Yeah, I moved like 10 miles. So I no longer live pretty close to Kevin Douglas, because I used to live like 10 minutes away from Kevin or less. But now I don't ever see Kevin anymore because he never comes here. So, but yeah, and he's a pilot. So, but yeah, so I've been moving for the last month, and so I finally got a 3-car garage, so it can help me with my project. So I have a bay just for this project right now, so I'm pretty excited about that. So now I have room where I can actually buy a battery and start ripping it apart. But so what I brought, are you gonna be able to see it? Okay, you're tied by the, oh yeah, okay, even yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, they're heavy. Yeah. All right. So here we go. So this guy, so you can see the end here. This interfaces a Tesla Model S and Model X front drive unit. That's the side that has the intermediate shaft that goes into here. And so I bought used axles and cut the end off and these axles are for a Nissan 240. So they're for a Nissan 240. This axle part will interface a 240 hub. And so interestingly, the 240 rear hubs are the same spline and diameter as the front hubs of a Nissan Frontier pickup truck. So this is what this is going into, is my Nissan Frontier pickup truck with the Tesla Model X front motor. Making an EV in general, or what do you mean? Yeah. So he asked me what's the point of doing these axles. And so this is because I've already mounted the front motor of a Model X in the, and I will, it's gonna be front motor, and it's gonna the 4-wheel drive hub, the hub that would normally be, for the 4-wheel drive. And so so you have to make the custom axle, obviously, because the Tesla axles don't match. I don't want to pick up the other one. that was really heavy. Well, the other one's not the same because it doesn't have the intermediate shaft. It looks more like a traditional axle, where it just has the seal. Okay, I'm gonna show. Okay, so these are actually rated at 800 horsepower. This is their level 4 whatever axle. But see, that's a normal. Well, that's what the axles they sell for Nissan 240s. So they just took their standard 240 axle upgrade kit and modified it. But make anything you want to make. So you just measure it and tell them it's on. Remake for upgraded axles, and maybe that, not sure, but it was so yeah, not cheap, but I think I lucked out pretty good on the Tesla motor, because you can buy the original. Tesla has now started putting what is it? They were induction, permanent magnet. So the new cars are permanent magnet. The new cars is very similar to the Model 3 front motor, actually. Actually, no, the Model, what is it? The Model 3 front motors are induction. It gets really confusing because the Model 3 front motors are induction, but the Model S and X front motors are permanent magnet because the rears are induction. So the way they're doing it is they have to have one motor that's permanent magnet and one motor that's induction, because they're turning off one motor. That's how they're getting efficiency out of it, is they're using both motors if you want to go fast or whatever, or and then when you're chilling, they turn off the induction one. So the Model 3 motor, they built this big induction rear, this big permanent magnet rear for Model 3. And then they're like, well, we still want to do this thing that we do with the Model X with the dual motor. So they had to do an induction in the front since the rear was permanent magnet. And then the Model S and X, rear motor is, this big motor that they've had for a while, and I guess they want to keep it. They put the permanent magnet in the front. I think they're turning off the big motor, and they're getting even better efficiency because the permanent magnet motor, because you can't turn off a permanent magnet motor. I don't know if y'all know that, but it'll cog real hard, I guess, because it's never off because it has permanent magnets in it. So yeah, right. It's always. Oh, really? And Yeah. Did Emma tell you that?
No.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Maybe Emma has noticed that she can feel the clutch and disengaging. Oh, like what I've done, like where it's progress and everything. Yeah, actually, I could take a video. I always tell myself that I should be on YouTube, but then I don't want to do the effort to make all that stuff because it's a lot of work. But yeah, for sure. It's so the point is that my project is still going. I'm still doing things. It's slow. The motor is mounted. I've already tested it, so it runs and everything. So that's what I was going to mention is if you buy an older, my motor is actually out of a 2018. And so those, if you buy an induction one, you get them for a pretty good price. So I got my motor for $1,500 on eBay. And if you were to buy a newer motor, they're like $6,000. So it's a pretty big difference. And the newer motors don't even have, they're not even hacked. Run them yet. Whereas the induction motors, there's a few different options for running it. And so I bought the control board from Open Inverter and I got everything wired up. I had to take the inverter off the motor and I had to take it apart. And swap the control board off of it. That's how Tesla proprietary software and control board, a custom control board. So I had to swap that out in the inverter. And so I tested everything works, it runs. So with these axles, the truck will actually move. But I need a battery. So that's the next thing is I got to spend. I have no money because I moved. I bought a house. So, but that's the total update on this project.
Thanks so much, John. Yeah, that's great. Jay, there's a couple of comments in there. I've forgotten already what I was going to say, but to hear about your projects is wonderful. Maybe I'll think about what your talk there spurred in my memory as we continue on. But so thinking of small trucks and ones that don't go, Bill emailed me a couple of photos and I will call them up now and hopefully get them on the screen here as to what happened on his truck. And where'd the photos go? Thought there we are. So let's see if I have to do a share here, but now I got a share screen. And there it is. Let me give you the microphone so you can talk to people.
Yes, this was a non-working E10. Kevin Douglas and I have been trying to put a battery in it. I don't know. Can I? And you can just see the damage. It broke the rear window and crashed in the cab a bit. And can I cycle through the different? Can you cycle through the different? Anyway, so this is the second. I'm going to go ahead and part this vehicle out and save what's EV related. And anyway, that's my story. It's unfortunate, but that's what happens. You know, we had a windstorm last night, and that limb, which is about 8 inches in diameter, must have hit at the perfect place, and it actually went laterally about 30 or 40 feet. So the wind must have been really howling. Anyway, there you have it. That was what I came in to see. Couldn't pull my EV in because it was taking up the space. And
it was lucky that the limb didn't hit another vehicle.
That's correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Say again. Oh, he's asked whether it was a healthy or rotted limb. we saw. There we go. So that's after the limb came off and. Well, the vehicle not, but your homeowner's insurance, since it was a tree limb, that would be the aspect of insurance that I would think you would pursue. They could pay you money.
I had a 3500 diesel truck take 4 of my front trees out, and then they ended up paying me that money to. And by the way, trees are very expensive. So each tree is like about $7,500. Right. Yeah, they uprooted it. He turned sideways in my ditch. And I mean, he must have been really traveling to uproot 4 trees, big trees like that. But they'll pay you directly. So what happened? It's a big diesel truck was coming down the road. Somehow was trying to avoid, he said, a deer, turned sideways and slid on my property sideways on its side, and took 4 trees in a row, uprooted them, almost pushing them all the way to the neighbor's fence. So you think he was, and he survived this.
Okay, so it wasn't going through the cab or something.
No. They're about what is that? About 8 inches, something like that. One of them, about 8 between 8 9 inches, something. So pretty decent size.
You say diesel truck, like
a 3500.
3500.
Yeah.
Okay.
The big one.
The big one. Okay.
Right.
So there's
Dual.
more mass to it.
Yes, there was more mass. Yeah. No, his insurance paid me. So we didn't have to go through my home. We were going to do that, but we didn't have to. And ended up, theirs ended up doing that, and they paid me directly.
Okay.
I just had to get an estimate of all I did.
Sure. Yeah. Something they could use to judge what the value was. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And other things that they had. I had trash all over my property from this vehicle.
None of your family members were in that spot at the time.
Yeah. And then when you're finished, we have a little scenario we wanted to share with the group about his boat.
Well, I think that those 4 photos that Bill sent me were what I wanted to cover. And I've got some miscellaneous things at the end, but why don't we go ahead and.
Yeah. So one thing that Andrew's been doing, first of all, for service, and just like what they did to reduce your battery on your bolt, Robert, they did the same thing without asking him for the upgrade. And we were so upset because what did it reduce it? How much? Yeah. And yeah. And otherwise we would have never had the upgrade done, but they said they wouldn't fix it without is the situation. So yeah, it's right. Classified that. So I get it, but they're going to replace our battery anyway. And he wants to run it down to the very end before he gets it replaced, get as many miles as he can out of this one. So it's just things like that we were trying to deal with. And so now he's working with Chevy about the buyback program. Okay. And so he got an estimate for their buyback, took it today to CarMax, got the exact same amount from CarMax, took it to another Chevy dealer, right? And got almost like $1,000 less or something like that. It's 2 years old, but just gives you an idea of, and there's about $8,000 of depreciation on that 36,000 mile vehicle. And so we went and test drove. He test drove a EV6, Kia EV6 last night. There's one in Houston, and they just got it in the day before yesterday. And so he test drove that, and just debating on what to really do with, to either do you upgrade on the Bolt EUV? Is that the right? Yeah, EUV, and do that next year so you can get the $7,600 maybe if that passes, plus the Texas $2,500, because that would be 10 grand really nice off of, which could all work out, or on the EV6 or whatever. So we're going through a lot of these scenarios to see what's the most economical, what's the best way to do this. So always looking for any insights anybody has as well.
On one of the V blogs, this is something that you could get $6,000 from GM if you agree not to sue them or something. And I wasn't planning on suing them anyways, but then I was talking to them and said, no, that we get you $6,000 off your next purchase or something. So kind of confusing.
Yeah, they're glad to do a trade out, or whatever. Or how does that work?
Yeah, so that $6,000 was for people who bought a 2022 model year before they announced the 2023 model year price cuts, because they cut the price of the Bolt EV and the Bolt EUV by about $6,000 for the 23 model year. So they're giving that $6,000 to the 2022 model year people who bought that to eat. Exactly. So you wouldn't have a situation kind of like where Tesla, they up and down the prices, but yeah. So that was with the 6,000. With the Bolt EUV upgrade, I was thinking about, so I would want to wait to take delivery of that till next year, because GM is currently out of federal EV tax credits. And they're out of EV tax credits for under the current law. If the new one gets signed in, they would get redone and re-upped, or the cap get removed completely starting 2023. But as soon as that bill is signed, EVs who are not finally finally assembled in the US lose all access to the credit. So that's Hyundai and Kia. So as soon as it's signed, so after it's signed, you lose credit on the. That's exactly what I was thinking too. But from what I was reading on articles diagnosing, the bill and everything, it's as soon as it's signed, assembly, ones that are not finally assembled in the US lose it. But starting 2023, the cap gets removed. Yeah, exactly. And it's only speculative at the moment.
Yeah, so we're only going on news reports. So if somebody actually read it and they put that in their news report, that's actually the wording, because that's just my assumption that everything takes effect January 1st. But it could say as soon as signed, certain things stop, and then the new 7,500 for like GM and there's also, from what I've read in news articles, a lot of pricing things. So maybe like cheaper Teslas, but more expensive Teslas won't get the 7,500, even though the cap has been removed. And then there's also certain income requirements. So it depends on what your income is and things like that. So there's all kinds of things in there. We'll all be reading a lot of news articles about all these different things. And so something, Robert.
All right. I've heard about this in one national chapter meeting years ago about these little cards placed on their windshields of EVs. If anybody wants anything, it's out of date because the national chapter changed their website to my EVA, electricvehicleassociation.org. So if you wanted, you have to scratch out the electricauto.org and just pencil in. It probably goes there. Yeah, but so if anybody wants these to just put it on windshields or of EVs. Tell them about the club. It has our website, the national chapters. I've got lots of them, so feel free to get them.
All right, that brings me to a couple of things, like National has asked us if we want to change our name to Houston EVA, with the V standing for vehicle instead of A for association. So I've asked some folks, and it seems like everybody is pretty much in line with that. Does anybody here have anybody online want to?
The only comment I have is we also talk, besides just vehicles, we talk about power grids. We talk about a lot of different things. Okay. I have actually no problem changing it to V, but think about that too, because we do a lot of things in those areas, infrastructure and things.
Yeah, and I agree with you. We do talk about a lot of those things. Usually they always tie back to the vehicle. So yes, I mean, a vehicle obviously isn't a standalone thing. You need an owner of the vehicle, driver, passengers, service people. I mean, you can keep on expanding out. And yeah, as I've told people, some of you here already know that Tesla has you name a vehicle EV plus PV. So the power source is right there, to talk about things like that. And so one thing I was going to show folks that just came in my mail the other day, which goes right along with what you were saying. On the cover of the latest IEEE, that's the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, is the line, so front cover, the full cover, how EVs can power the grid. That's what IEEE is put on their latest issue that just came out. And I have a photo, I'll stick it on well, maybe I can just do this, just hold it up in front of the camera. Saves me from pulling out so as you can see, IEEE, and there's the title. But one of the things I was going to ask Emma, if she can hear me, is what comments you have for these guys in the back that have been looking at the HEAA, and you have a Hyundai, and as most folks know, Kia and Hyundai are related companies. So Emma, if you're able to get to your microphone, do you have anything to mention? So I guess you guys said that it was the one Kia 6, yeah, in all of Houston, because of course, Emma's story is that she drove to Georgia to pick up her Hyundai Ioniq 5 because there were none in Houston. Oh, really? Florida?
South Houston right now. Okay. I went by and saw it, and they gave me the good spiel on it. So, but they were more impressed with the electric motorcycle that I rode up on than they were with their own vehicle. So,
oh, I'm sure you impressed them with that. Yeah.
12,000 over him. It's horrible.
I know, that's the thing.
I mean, it is such a seller's market right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
This is Emma.
Emma?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Emma.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what you wanted me to answer questions or something, but yeah, I overheard you say something about 12,000 over MSRP. And back when I was trying to find my car, I guess this was late December, early January. Actually, it was late December, I think. Most places around the country, like Arizona and where I picked up my car outside of Atlanta, were charging 5,000 over MSRP, but Colorado was charging 12,000 or 10,000 over MSRP. So I totally took them off the list right away because that was crazy. But yeah, and in the Facebook forums for the Ioniq 5, some people have reported, and I think most of them are people up in the Northeast who have found dealerships that aren't charging MSRP, but I think some of them are also very particular about selling only to people within the state. So I guess I got lucky that it was so early on with the Ioniq 5 being available that they were willing to sell to me, even though I was out of state. It did cause a little bit of hassle with me paying for the car because I wanted to pay all cash, but they were not willing to take a cashier's check, even if it were a cashier's check written by a credit union 10 miles from their dealership. it was kind of ridiculous, but I got it figured out. So I ended up having obviously to finance it, but then just paid it off in a couple weeks. So that was a hassle, but I was able to
Yeah,
get the
sometimes
car.
you have to play
That was
play
the
the
point.
games for financing. Back when I bought our Ford plug-in hybrid, I also wanted to pay cash, and it came out that I had to finance it for 2 weeks and just paid it off. And it just, the way that they are wired, these dealerships, they just force you into loans even when you don't want one. And Robert, yeah, has also had them get thrown for a loop when he's done things. So I thank you, Colin, that you, well, he stepped away from his camera, but he put in the chat that the Old Electric Auto Association does forward to myeva.org, which is the new site for the national organization. So, and I should also mention to folks here and online who may not have heard, since Mo, our old treasurer, is taking a job in Austin, he and his family are moving to Austin, and I've asked Colin to step up, and he said he agreed to do that, to be our new treasurer. So of course, we don't do a whole lot with financing. I'm thinking now with name change, we may need some signs or something like that. But considering that our dues are zero, and thanks to Bill working with the TXRX folks here, our rent for this room every month is zero. And but other things coming up. Jim Tucker just wrote, I believe the Costco vehicle purchase program has some EVs. Oh, now that's interesting. So if you can see, Costco website or Costco vehicle purchase program, I don't know if it's through their website or you do it in person, has some EVs. So that's an interesting thing just to look at. Certainly a membership would probably be worth it.
I looked into the Costco vehicle purchasing, whatever, with your membership, as well as the Sam's one. And it was basically, they have partnerships with certain dealerships to try to get you into a vehicle, but it was tough to find an EV available back in, at least when I was looking back in December, January timeframe. But maybe it's better now. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, those kinds of things, I imagine they can change quickly. Yeah, just different things in terms of pricing change quickly. But something else, so I don't forget, so that folks are aware, after our September second Thursday meeting on September 8th, the NDU, National Drive Electric Week, comes up, and that's basically the last week in September. And I've been talking to Steve Hanrahan about Saturday the 24th. So I'd like everybody who can hear my voice right now to bring their EV or just bring themselves and talk about EVs. We're talking about using the same elementary school that we used last time. The name of it slips my mind, but it's over there in Bel Air. Condit Elementary, thank you, Condit Elementary. Well, yeah, we had used Evelyn's Park, but right now I'm looking at the elementary school. I mean, we can look at different venues. I mean, we can do multiple venues, of course, but that just divides us up into smaller numbers of people. I really liked how other people that we don't normally see at our meetings, in particular last time, 2 owners of Ford Mach-E's showed up because they saw us on the NDU website, and they just registered their cars and they came and they talked to people. And of course, one of the exciting things was they had ice with drinks in it in their front trunks because there's a drain plug in it. And so, yeah, so that was, yeah, their hoods were open. And so, yeah, I'm just really like it when other folks in the community, obviously we'd like everyone in the community to come either in person or via Zoom, but some folks just can't make it on Thursdays. We know that too. But just by seeing the advertisement, and there was good flow, people could get into the elementary school parking lot, whereas at Evelyn's Park, we were kind of static and so forth. But both were good, and I wouldn't be against doing both if that's what we can end up doing. But I'm pushing for the elementary school right now. And so Steve's talking to the principal and so forth. But in other parts of the city, obviously, if we can get more folks that want to sponsor and and set something up in other parts of the city, that would be great as well. And I believe you can choose different days in that week, and I'm targeting Saturday, the 24th. That kind of seems like a good.
Hey, Dave.
Yes.
Yeah. What was it? 3 years ago, 4 years ago, that we had one in Bel Air at the park, which was on a different day, and then we had 3 others on other days. IKEA or on the Saturdays. We had IKEA and 2 other locations. So yeah, we can do it. And of course, reaching more people is the goal.
Absolutely. Yeah. More spots would be better. Yes, we had done IKEA before. And Chris, I'm blanking out his last name, had set up a couple of other sites previous times. So yeah, we just need a kind of a point person for any sites that we want to add to the elementary school. And like I said, folks out there who are interested will just see it on the NDU National Drive Electric Week site, and folks will be willing to bring their cars out. It's just been shown. I mean, there were others besides the 2 Mach-E's. Those are just the ones that stick out in my head. But besides folks that we see and folks that we don't see that are regular members, these are just folks in the community that came out, and that's great. And of course, we talked to them and encouraged them all, but yeah, not everybody wants to come to meetings and things, but yeah, whatever works for folks. So yes, I will send email out on that. So tentatively, we're looking for September 24th. Yeah, so that's over a month away. Yeah, and so that's on that topic. But yeah, let me give you the mic. Don't make me repeat it.
Fully charged, the annual fully charged, were you going to mention that? Okay, I'm mentioning it. So fully charged is September, the weekend of the 10th and 11th, I believe, the Saturday, Sunday, and it's in San Diego this year. Y'all are going to fully charged? Okay, the Hildebrands are going to fully charged. Awesome.
Yes, yeah. For folks that were at the fully charged in Austin, everybody really liked it. So it's great to hear you guys are going to go, and you're going to tell us when you come back from San Diego. So that's 10th, 11th of September, you said? Okay. So okay. And you're going to drive. But what I'm getting at is that I guess our meeting date is going to be right before that. So it would be the following meeting in October that you could tell us about it. Okay. Just, it's always good when things are fresh, but it happens to be just the wrong order between our meeting date and the dates for the fully charged. But yeah, that's just the way the calendar works out. So, and also looking ahead, just to have everybody keep in mind. So we've got September, October, November regular meetings. And in December, I figure that the second Thursday, forget which day it falls on, would probably be a good one for us to have our annual dinner. And we'll probably go out to the cafeteria. I'm blanking out on its name. Claiborne's, thank you. I knew that. All I had to do is say I couldn't remember it. Somebody would remind me. Yeah, so just think about that. It'd be great to have all your family members and folks out there so that your family members know what it is that you do when, very good. Thank you. It's probably Colin that put that up for the fully charged on the screen. Yeah, that way our family members know who else you're associating with on these. Yeah. So we're here. So Bill, did you want to say anything about your container with the solar panels?
Sure. I guess we could share a photo, but it would take a few minutes. Sure. No, as some of you know, I'm converting a 20-foot container out back to solar. I'm prototyping a system for me, 6,000 watts with a 20 kWh lithium battery, and that's my system. Then another gentleman that owns a container out west, who in fact gave me my batteries because they were glitching out. I purchased, he purchased, I should say, a 10,000 watt system with 20 kWh of batteries, lithium batteries, and anybody's certainly welcome to come out and look at it. I'm also confirmed that I can charge it level 1 and level 2 out there. But my 20 kWh, so that's not much of a charge. Enough. That's less than what my Leaf takes. But anyway, it's moving forward. I might add that we had a speaker here from Savannah Inc., a guy that builds chargers. We've kind of been talking a little bit. He approached me the other day about putting up, building a structure, a carport structure that would charge 3 or 4 cars. And of course, he would be funding it. I would be pleased if in fact, I approached the labs. They don't have any EV chargers here yet. Roland told me that they're not likely to happen because the debt service on their loan is just increased by a few percentage points, and they're not likely to go out and spend a bunch of money on EV chargers. So we all know that it's not. Oh, that's great. There's the container there. I have 12 panels. It was set up to where the outboard panels could track. The wind blows rather significantly here, so I've got the columns in place. But when the left outboard panels drop down, the panels on the right side go up. So in theory, you could put that on a north-south axis and track during the day. You know, all the solar farms are at least single axis trackers. It's a pain in the tush, you know, because things break, but nevertheless, it's fun. And when you single axis track, you get about 20% more energy during the day. I have an anemometer out there. I'm going to look at the data. I don't know whether the wind was significant here last night. But anyway, that's my story. It'll be interesting. You know, I mean, EVs are coming on so strongly that, you know, and pressure to put public charge stations in is there. And I think that I'm going in the right direction of providing EV charging out there. Anyway, thank you, Dave.
Oh, yes. For folks that are here in person, very good. And yeah, so folks online, you should be able to see Bill's box. Bill's box, I like that. Okay, and for folks who weren't here last time, let's see if I can, no, it's not gonna, let's see, if I call up, so with Emma, we did a great project. I think that's going out to everybody. So there's many hands make light work, right? That was last month for folks who weren't here in person or online. So yeah, you can see it. Everybody was pitching in. We had a lot of fun with that. Let's see if. Yes, it is. And I stuck one other photo in there. Let's see. Yeah, one other. Yeah. So, yeah. And people were moving all around. This is just one shot of where people were at. But even though it wasn't something specific only to EVs, I thought it was really great that we could do the project together. And so now you know what you missed if you weren't here last month.
Which hitch did Emma end up getting for her car, and what's the tow rating? Because one of the decisions that I was making on EV6 versus Ioniq was the EV6 is officially rated to tow.
Emma, can you hear? Did you hear the question? I didn't look recently. Is Emma still on? She may or may not be still on, even though we see her on the screen. a month ago working. I don't know if she's.
I'm just having problems.
No,
Not
okay, very
able to
good.
see
So
some things.
you heard Andrew's question, or would you like him to repeat it?
I've heard part of it. So I ended up getting the what is it called? The torque lift central, I think, it's a stainless steel powder coated 2-inch receiver. It was well rated, and there's a YouTuber guy called the Ionic Guy that installed the same one on, he had an SEL Ionic 5. So a little different than the limited that I have, but he did a whole YouTube video on installing it, which helped guide us in installing it, or helped me. I watched it many times before we actually did the project. It actually, the tow rating is based on supposedly what the Ionic is rated for. And I think even though I have a 2-inch receiver, the factory tow hitch that that Hyundai provides is actually a 1 1/4, but it sticks out. It didn't look that great. I like the one that I bought because it's a little more hidden. I think they say you're supposed to be able to tow about, I think it's about 2,000, so a ton, 2,000 pounds. So it's not great. It's not as good, obviously, as I used to be able to tow with my Model X, but it's at least enough for my needs. My trailer is very lightweight. So, and I can pack as much as it's able to carry in there and have no problem towing my little trailer. And I shouldn't have any problem towing a small teardrop trailer either. It's probably not rated to tow something like what Mike Zutek has. His, I forgot the brand name of his trailer, or his camper. I mean, he's got a camper. But
I can't remember the brand either. Yeah.
Yeah, but he tows it with his Model X with no problem. So yeah, and Mike Zutek's wife, I'm blanking on her name. I don't know why.
Pam, I think.
Pam, I think you're right. Pamela, yeah. She has an EV6. She and I actually didn't realize that they had an EV6 until we happened to be asked to be at this event, Texas Auto Dealership in, I guess, Evolve, Houston. This was back in, when was that? February or so. And I had just, had my car for maybe a month. And they wanted to do a story about the new electric vehicles that were non-Teslas. And so we both volunteered. And so she's another source if you want to, get more or hear more about the EV6, because she's had hers about I think she got hers, maybe the event was in March, and I think she bought her EV6 in February or something like that. So I think I had my Ioniq 5 a little longer than she had. But they had the factory, HEAA's factory hitch receiver put on their car, but it's the 1 1/4-inch tube receiver, not a 2-inch receiver. So
that's an aspect of it, Andrew, to pay attention to. 1 1/4 versus 2-inch, and 2-inch is the standard for a lot more things. Yeah.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. Anybody else have a question for Emma? Thanks for stepping up, because that's exactly what Andrew is shopping for, and that really helps him, I think.
Yeah.
So.
I definitely looked around and kind of debated which one. And the nice thing too, I mean, the torque lift version, and you might look at torque lift. I can send you the web link, because there's another torque lift that's not quite the same. I think the one I bought it from was called Torque Lift Central or something like that. But anyway, they might have a version for the EV6. I don't know, because I didn't really even look at that. But the torque lift, the nice thing too was, I think it's the only one that was all stainless. So you don't have to deal with the issues of rust. And a lot of the like draw tight had a tow hitch receiver. I think it was a 2-inch as well for the Ionic 5, but it was cheaper, which was fine. And so U-Haul did too. And I can't remember if U-Haul's was 1 1/4 or 2, but none of theirs, even the dealer or the manufacturer's 1 1/4 inch receiver, none of them are stainless. So you may
Yeah,
end up
that's
dealing with some rust issues.
Yeah, an important distinction. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much. And thanks for everybody's input and everything. It really makes it enjoyable to interact. So we will wrap it up at this point. And I already mentioned about next month and the 2 things, our regular meeting and then the National Drive Electric Week. And for those folks going out to Fully Charged, have fun, and we'll hear about it in October. That'll be good. Of course, if we see you at Endu, you can start filling in people at that time. You come on out there to be nice. So, all right. I haven't really followed a lot about the Evolve relaunch. Do you know much about it?
I don't really know much about it. It's next Thursday, the 18th, from 8 a.m. to 11:30 at the George R. Brown Convention Center. If you followed Evolve Houston, they showed up at Condit. They also were, I think, the main force behind the EV stand at the Texas Automobile Dealers Association show. I didn't go this year, but I went the year before, and a couple of us were on the stand talking about electric vehicles. So I'm not sure why they feel they need to do a relaunch, but that's what they're doing.
Okay, yeah, maybe we'll hear more about it going forward then, like after the 18th. Yeah. Oh, good. All right. Well, if you can tell us, because I know I'll be out of town, so I wasn't keeping it so tight on my radar. Okay, so yeah, if we can hear about what they did. All right, because yeah, if we can hear about that next month, that'll be great. And, oh, number of people then. All right. Okay, and Center Point too. All right.
Chargers are very important. I live on the southeast side of town out in LaPorte. And once you get off of 45 east of Highway 3, there's nothing. There's one charger within 5 miles of my house. And after that, I have to come all the way to either Pasadena. Well, Pasadena is the car dealership.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they have a level 2 charger there, and the theater there at Red Bluff and Pasadena Boulevard has 2 level 2 chargers. But other than that, there's nothing in my area. You know, if I go down to Kima, if I go down to the boardwalk, I'm surprised. The boardwalk does not have a supercharger. They don't have a level 2 charger. They had one wall plug at the boardwalk in, but it's been rerouted all the way down, and that's what they charge their golf carts off of. That's it. That's all you get. And, you know, if I go down to Galveston, it's one shot down to Galveston. And if I don't make it down there, I'm spending the rest of the day charging. So,
Yeah. Wow.
So it's, like I said, having the infrastructure out towards my corner of the world. Once I get downtown, you know, I'm fine. but I really have to watch how I charge this little electric motorcycle because I took off to Robert Powell's house one day from my house. Yes.
If you go down to Galveston, there's Tanger, Tanger outlet.
You are right. I forgot about that.
They have level 2 charge point chargers.
Yeah. They're
I used to
hidden off
use
in the
those
bushes.
when
I
they had
forgot
the
about
leaf.
those.
Yeah. I used to use those when I had my Leaf way back when.
Okay.
And those were handy.
A lot of the EV chargers, I have 6 different apps because, like I said, I have a 100-mile range, so I have to be real conservative as to where I'm going. And I have 6 different apps to find, where the chargers are, to find out how far I can go. So it's really kind of iffy on, especially like I said, my side of town. There's nothing out there. So.
And you know about the Volta chargers at Baybrook, right?
Yes.
Those are free too. Yeah. But Tanger
Yeah.
is also free. Yeah.
Most places, some places like we'll give you 2 hours for free charging. On a level 2, I charge up in an hour and a half from dead zero. So, it's a 14 kilowatt battery, kilowatt hour battery. So, hour and a half, I'm fully charged from flat zero. So they're all free for me.
This is a motorcycle? Yes. With 14 kWh. That's huge.
Yeah, it's a big battery.
Oh, you can plug in here.
Yeah.
No, at the lab.
So Bill's saying you can plug in and charge while here too.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, perfect. Perfect. Okay. But tonight you didn't need to, or? Yeah. Okay. All right. Right. No. Yeah. If you're not going to the circuit, making different errands and things like that. So, okay. Good. Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Came all the way back around to LaPorte. And by the time I got back to LaPorte, the one charger that I plugged into it and the whole bike freaked out, turned the charger off, said no. So I unplugged, reset my battery, plugged back in. It came alive, turned the charger off, said no, can't do it. Pulled the battery logs. I was running around because I'd been hot charging from almost zero and then back down to zero. My battery was running 50 degrees Celsius. It was, yeah, charge because no, we're about to burst into flames. So it's the Zero SR. It's a 2021. And it's a lot of fun. I love this little thing.
Yeah, and Robert has fun with his. So for those who haven't heard, he has moved to Colorado. So we're not going to see him around here very much. Robert Powell. Yeah. Yes, he's already in Colorado. Yeah, with his Rivian. Yeah. Yeah. So just in case people were wondering why we haven't seen Robert Powell lately. Yeah. He's out of the state. Anyway. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. A lot of stuff. And that's why it's great to get together in person again now. So, all right. So that'll wrap it up and we'll see everybody next month. Thanks.